Good morning, REC Nation. Thank you for joining us on this family day long weekend. For everyone watching live, for everyone watching recorded, thank you for joining us as well. My name is Tyler Walburn, and I'm one of our real estate coaches here at REC Canada. While I wait, give some time anyways for some people to join us on this Sunday, do want to talk about a few of our divisions that we have, one of which that I wanted to remind all of our insiders or people listening or watching that we do have, which is our real estate concierge division. It is something that Jazz, Samin, and myself created a few years ago, and it's a division I'm really proud about. It brings complete value to our REC insiders. It's essentially a service that we have if you need a local contractor, cleaner, mortgage broker, investment specialist across the country, you name it, or maybe an insurance broker, we can help connect you to those service providers. We have a lengthy due diligence that we use when we're trying to find the right service provider, and we always try to provide you 2 to 3 just so you can screen them yourselves and kind of interview them. Sometimes I find personalities that might work for me might not work for another REC insider, so it's always good to have a little bit of variety. If you do have anything on your real estate to-do list, just send us an email, info@REC Canada. I hope by now you do also have my cell phone number. If I've connected with you, send me a text, email, give us a little bit of time, and we'll try our best to connect you with the right service provider. Today, we have a fantastic guest joining us. She is one of our service providers for our REC insiders, but beyond that, she is an investor with REC Canada. Her name is Catherine. Nick, if you don't mind just bringing Catherine on. Hey, Catherine, how you doing? Thanks for joining me today.
Good. How are you guys?
I am fantastic. How's my audio? I don't have my AirPods in today. Can you hear me well?
I can hear you.
Amazing. So Catherine, I appreciate you taking time out of your long weekend and joining me. This is the second REC event that you've attended this week, though. So we
Yes.
do appreciate your support. we had actually a really busy week. So we had a back-to-back landlord intelligence event and one that you attended on Thursday. I couldn't see you there. I was on the Wednesday event, but had to be with the kids on Thursday. It was good though. It was a good discussion.
It was good. I got to meet everyone at REC. I mean, we've been working together for 2 years, but never really met in person. So it was really nice.
It was so nice just to get back to in-person events. It's something that I've missed personally. I think it's one of my favorite parts of being with REC and working with REC is our networking and our in-person events. The Zooms are great, but what we're going to be focusing on this year is a lot of these types of smaller, intimate events like our landlord intelligence ones. So, Catherine, even after this call or this recording here, if you have any topics you wanted to cover or you think that you might get some value from, let me know. Anyone listening, also just send me an email or a text, and we're trying to do a bunch of them this year. I really want to do a JV. I want to do a JV discussion one. Actually, I think that would be good.
Sure.
I think naturally from my conversations that I'm having with REC insiders, I think like joint venture structureship and trying to invest with a few other investors is a good strategy, especially taking advantage of the market right now, but not really putting all of the capital or all of your exposed risk with any kind of added expenses. You can at least take advantage. You might have to give up 50% of the equity, but at the same time, it's 50% less capital potentially, as well as 50% less ongoing expenses. So it's something I'm having a lot of conversations about. So, Catherine, as I was telling you backstage, my segment's called Real Stories from Real Investors. And what I do here is I like to speak with all of our REC insiders, ones that have found success through investing like yourself, learn about your motivation of investing, your big why did you get into real estate investing, as well as talking about some of the challenges and successes and the types of investments that you do invest into. And I always like to start off with the first investment because to me anyways, in my experience, the first investment is always the hardest. It's the one that takes 100% capital, whereas all your other ones you can use some creative financing to help purchase the other ones. But the first one's usually the one that you really have to kind of come to terms with and go head first and jump into this crazy world we call real estate investing. So what was the first property that you purchased?
So a little background story. We started during COVID. So in 2021, we decided to purchase a short-term rental so that we can actually put on Airbnb, list it, because it was COVID. We knew where things were going in the sense that everyone was crazy booking local travels, and it was a hot market. Since we already refinanced our home and we decided to take the money out, we needed a plan, and the plan got pivoted to short-term rentals. We didn't want. Well, I'm an insurance broker, so I had exposure from clients where they're calling in saying they have tenant problems and all that stuff. So it kind of scared me for a bit too. I'm like, oh no, I don't want to deal with this actually. So then we decided to buy a cottage. We ended up buying it in Halliburton, 3 hours away.
Amazing.
It had everything. It had everything for it. Like it had a lake view. It was 3 bedrooms, so we knew that we can rent it out and break even, given the market. So that's where we started to decide to park our money. Plus, we can do a BRRRR factor, which is to improve the property, refinance it later on when there's equity. That was the first property.
So in regards to the short-term rental opportunity, and I agree. I think what we saw even prior to the pandemic, but it really amplified during the pandemic, was domestic traveling. I think domestic traveling was a huge kind of swing during that time because we couldn't go anywhere else. We stayed in Canada, and it seems to be anyway something that is still very prevalent. In regards to the purchase itself, what was the reason being because of the risk of long-term tenancy? Is that why you jumped into it, or was it also kind of the cash flow potential?
It's a bit of both. We were, well, at that time during COVID lockdown, I was paying attention to Ontario. The eviction level was there. Like, there's no eviction allowed in Ontario during that time.
Yeah.
So we were kind of scared. We're like, oh no. And then we hear people who are like moving houses to houses. So we're thinking like during COVID, who would be moving this often, right? And do we want to really take on a tenant? And we were very new to the field. Do we really want to make it a bad experience as well? So it's kind of like, just to preempt failures in the business, we decided to just change it up and let's try short-term rental and somewhere away from GTA where prices were not crazy as well, so that there's a better success for the property as well.
And because it is 3 hours away, I would imagine that you have a property manager there.
One of our partners ended up. So funny thing, we did JV for this project.
Oh wow. Okay, there we go.
Yeah, we JV with another couple with like-minded, and they end up turning out to be our property manager in the second year. In the first year, we're all hands-on. We did a lot of work in it, and we divided up our specialized skills. And then the second year, we realized one of the partners wanted to step up and be a property manager because we got quotes from third-party sources that they wanted 20%. So we're like, well, why not pay somebody we know and trust that would take care of it better than us? Yeah.
Because that was my question. I find with property managers that manage short-term rentals, the range is between that 18 to 22%, and you hit it right there, right in the middle, which is 20%, which is a lot of capital, right? So if you can find the right partners that you've already invested with on the property to manage it, that's great. It's an advantage of finding the right partners for a JV.
Yes, exactly.
And then what type of work did you do to the property? You said you bought it as a potential BRRRR approach. Did you actually do some work to it, or
yes, we
is it
did
something kind of
actually.
pending?
Well, initially when we acquired the property was in April. We wanted to get it out by summer, so we can only do a lot of like facelifting stuff, which is painting, removing the floors, furnishing the entire place, grounding the tiles, and clearing the beach to make it look more nice. That was the first 2 months project, and as soon as the season started to slow down in the fall, we decided to do more work towards it. For example, just last fall, we did do what do you call it? We replaced the roof. We
Okay.
added some fireplace, the propane fireplace, and an AC unit last year. So like it's like it's ongoing with all these
Yeah.
small projects. Yeah,
And how many rooms does it have?
it has 3 bedrooms and 2.5 washrooms.
Amazing.
It's about an 1,800 square feet, so it's decent size. Like two families can rent it at any
Mhm.
time and split the cost. So that's how we felt. Like we're like, oh, this is something that we both our families would rent together.
Oh, that's good. And I think that's another reason that some investors do go into short-term rentals is they want to have a property that they can actually travel to, but at the same time, at least it covering most of the cost of it. So
Hmm.
that's amazing. And then in regards to the some of the advertisement strategies, because I have it here too. I wanted to kind of touch on advertisement because I find right now I want to preface my question because some of the original strategies for short-term rentals, which is, put it on VRBO or Airbnb, used to work. But right now, with the amount of one competition, but as well as the fees involved in some of these sites, I do know some short-term rental investors have gone into some alternative advertisement. What's your advertisement kind of package, or what do you do to try to list and lease the property out?
So I think our partners tried, for example, Facebook Marketplace. There's some specific cottage Facebook pay groups as well,
Oh, in the
and then we
community.
did yeah, like VRBO too. Word of mouth, we spread it to our family and friends. Then, but majority of the time, we find success at Airbnb.
Yeah.
Just for it's easier, and honestly, the experience dealing with Airbnb was very pleasant compared to any other
Mm.
um,
In regards
platforms.
to their support.
Yes. If there was any
Yeah.
problem between you and the tenant, they find a solution in between. You can still be compensated in some levels so that you're not really losing out on the whole booking. And it's really nice actually. They find the middle grounds.
That's good. And then when it comes to actually screening the prospective tenant, because it is short term, right? So it's a lot different than your average tenant. Is there a screening process involved? Like,
Yes, there is some settings that you can do on Airbnb. For example, you only want people with I think was it at least 5 reviews on their
okay.
profile that they can
Oh, you
book.
can actually set it up.
There
So if they don't have that, they can't even book it.
Exactly. They would have to message you ahead of time. They won't
Mm.
be able to automatically book. So there
Okay.
is requirements you can set to kind of like screen out people who never been on Airbnb. It's their first time. Most likely they're not going to be the best tenant that you're going to have either. So then it's nice to know. And then if they message you, they sincerely would tell you their story, why they're renting, and all that other stuff. So it's like, you can make a call at that time whether or not you're comfortable to proceed.
The, and then what is the typical kind of booking time frame? Is it usually the weekend? Do you have some that are longer? Like, what's the longest tenancy that you've had?
A week, really. No, wait,
A week?
actually 2 weeks, almost 2 weeks, yeah.
Oh, so it was just a
2 weeks
family
in
that.
winter.
Wow.
Yeah.
I think maybe if they wanted to drive up 3 hours in the winter, they were like, I'm staying there for a few weeks.
They're really into the winter activities. There's camps, and their children can go to, the camp during because up here the competition is lower at the cottage land. There's a lot more availability, more flexibility. So the family actually takes a vacation up there and decided to spend almost 2 weeks there,
Wow.
so that their kids can attend the classes. Yeah, it's
Oh,
actually
that's
pretty
good.
cool.
Yeah, it's just going out. There's so many nice parts of Ontario that we have so much potential, like beautiful potential areas there to purchase and have these types of investments. And you just gotta venture out from the GTA, right?
Yeah, and
So
honestly, pictures for everything. That's how you attract renters. They
yeah,
need to see what they can do while they're there, and I
oh,
find
like the
that that's what you
activities
have to
itself,
invest.
the activities.
Mhm.
Oh, that's good. I like that. That's a good tip there. In regards to you know, kind of talking to the first time investor in short term rentals, do you have any advice for someone trying to kind of pinpoint a location or pinpoint a type of property?
That is gonna be very difficult Because what our experience purchasing this property, we were getting like priced out during the market at the time. So
Mm,
really, even though you have an ideal property, I would say list your amenities that you would want. For example, do your research. We wanted specifically a lake view, somewhere with a small beach for the kids to play. Mind you, it's because we have young children ourselves, and we wanted, so that was our goal. Maybe if somebody who is single with no kids don't really care, they can live in the town. They like to be closer to walking distance to the grocery shop, for example. But for us, we're like, no, we have cars. So we're fine with driving a little further. And we just want to be disconnected from the city. We had this vision board of what it looks like. But when you're trying to find that property, it's going to be very tough. And sometimes you're going to have to pivot and make compromises in regards of those activities, right? So all I could say is have a list of what you think should be there and then aim for that. And sometimes you will have to make compromises and just also do a lot of research in regards to rent. For example, we use AirDNA. Um, we were everywhere on the map. We went from Wasaga Beach to tiny beaches to Aurelia. And we originally started at Quatha Lake, but we were losing bids there.
oh yeah. Well, in 2021, the price of recreational properties like doubled in price. It
It's
was
crazy. Yeah.
it was very challenging. We worked with a few of our REC insiders who were looking, and there wasn't a specific pocket. It was all 2 hours around the GTA. All of those types of opportunities, those cottages, the lakefront especially, types of properties. It seemed like you were putting an offer in, for a duplex in Pickering. That's how much competition there was.
It was we came by a cottage that already had an Airbnb income for $80,000. It was listed for 300,000. By the end, it closed at 777,000 with 77 bids. It's just nuts. And the things like I wasn't even sure if I wanted to jump in for the bidding war, but that's the reality during 2021. Everyone was just in buying.
I find when working with investors in markets that have a lot of competition, and I've been working with REC insiders now for coming up to 10 years, and I can say that the only thing, Catherine, that I try to recommend doing is have a plan and have a top budget price. Like do not, even if we're off by $500 or $1,000, have a top budget price and do not go over that. That's the only way when it comes to like dealing with 77 offers, is the only way that you don't let emotion get to it.
Exactly. We kind of ran it like a business where we're like, look, this had everything we wanted, but the truth is we're up against with 70 people. So
Yeah.
no thanks. We moved on. We pivoted
Yeah.
so fast where we just jumped to Halliburton. We're like, screw this.
Let's
And
go.
Let's go
Yeah.
further. Let's just drive until you qualify. That's exactly the strategy we use.
100%. I love that. I love that you said that. Exactly. For everyone listening, drive until you qualify. Don't get into the emotion of losing out on some potential opportunities, because there will always be more.
There is. And I think it's like when we finally went to Halliburton, we lucked out because this property was listed for a month and no one was going for it. And then they were offered, I think, less by somebody, one offer. So we're like, okay, we jumped in and just took it.
Yeah, that's great. And you had so in regards to financing, did you find it more challenging to secure the financing for the short-term rental compared to like a traditional purchase? A
For
traditional
sure.
duplex?
Yeah, like all I could say is build your team. So talk to a mortgage specialist. We sent MLS listing to our mortgage specialist, and they would actually tell us, I'm sorry, down payment's going to be at least 30% for this one because it's a private road. Those are like the little things you'll learn as you go. And for us, we kind of lucked out because the Halliburton property was on an actual road, public roads. So we only needed to put 20%, but there's incentive to put in the 30% because of the lower mortgage interest rate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you have less monthly payments, and then you can kind of have a little bit more of an uplift when it comes to the rental prices.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then you said AirDNA. For anybody that doesn't know what AirDNA is, what is that?
It's almost like how am I say this? it collects all the data and gives you the statistics of how much your potential rent is once you input the property information, and the
Oh wow.
city, it locks down that information. So for example, Halliburton, we were told that you can make average in the summer at least $500 a month. No, sorry, $500 a night. Sorry.
A night.
Yeah. So by giving that information, it kind of helps you adjust your business plan to see how well you can do given the cash flow. And I guess that's why we wanted to calculate the ROI before we proceed. We're like, okay, there's potential, you know?
And did you have like a while you're running the numbers or building a pro forma, did you have like a conservative number when it comes to like vacancy for the month?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think we in a given year we vacant half the year.
Half the year. Wow, that's good. That's very conservative.
Yes.
I always find I always recommend doing about like 30 to 40%. So that's great. Which means that when the property outperforms that 50%, it shows better on the actual return. So that's good. And did you find a lot of properties that you were looking at, even though you didn't purchase these ones? Did you find that there were a lot of properties that worked with that 50% vacancy pro forma?
It was difficult in Quatta Lake. That was the original place that we were looking at. It was crazy because they were listing at 700, 800,000, but they're at the end, they end up getting priced at 1.1, 1.2. A lot of these, the neighbors came out listing it at 1 million. Then we did the math and we realized even if we priced it at $500 to $700 a night, it was difficult. And it was difficult for our JV partners as well, because we're all jumping in this for the first time. And we just don't see it, that the math will work. And you just seen the rooms. It's not even a room. It's like even smaller than a den in a condo. We're like, we can't even fit a queen size bed. It's not a legit room. So we're like, nah, it's not working. See, as soon as you see the property and you see how big it is, you can kind of get an idea of how much you can rent out. Yeah. But it was quite difficult.
And I think it's the experience of seeing it, getting reps in, actually going and seeing the properties. I always like to have a rule, just try to see, and it's hard because you're driving out 3 hours, so it's a little bit harder to have this specific rule, but try to see 10 to 12 properties first. I think no matter what type of budget you have or what type of opportunity you're looking for, I think you have to compromise something. I think it's natural. If you have a $5 million budget, $300,000 budget, it doesn't matter. You're going to compromise something. And the only way to know what you can compromise is by going and seeing it, seeing things that are non-negotiable that you need to have in the property, or things that you're okay without having. So, less closet space compared to larger backyard space, or waterfront, but that means that you might have to take in a property that's a little bit older, things like that.
Yeah, we wanted like something with a hot tub already. We know, it's an amenity, but then the problem is like, without the hot tub, then you have to add it in. And during the market, 2021 was very difficult to get anything.
Yeah.
To a new So it was like you had to compromise.
It was very challenging to find service providers. Oh, sorry for cutting out. It was very challenging for finding service providers in 2021, for sure. Yes. Just like the ones that we already had on our REC kind of service provider list, they were booked. They're booked out for a year. Like, this is a drywall. How are you booked out?
Remember, I called you and I'm like, can you give me a contractor in Halliburton? And you're like, yeah, sure. And then I talked to him. I'm like, so how soon can you get here and do work? I have projects lined up for 3 to 9 months from now, so I can't.
Especially in those markets, like the ones where there's only a good handful of contractors that you can use. Yeah, it
was difficult. It was difficult. Which we understand. We were very hands-on. Honestly, short-term rental is great with cash flow and everything, but there's a lot of moving components to it. I mean, we cleaned the cottage that summer. We couldn't find a cleaner.
Yeah. No, that's okay.
We couldn't find a cleaner. We couldn't find anybody to come and help us. Even if we had the money to pay for it, it was different. So that experience.
Are you finding it better now? Are you finding it easier now? Yeah.
Yeah, we're able to shop and find a cleaner, find a landscaper and all that stuff now. But before, it was so difficult in the first year. So yeah, thank God we went into a JV because both the couples took turns to go up there and clean every Saturday. And like 3 hours there one way,
Yeah.
3 hours back, and then 3 hours cleaning. There goes the whole
Yeah.
day.
And when you were building that joint venture structureship, uh, how did you communicate that? Did you just say, okay, if we need to do this, we all have to do X? Like, how did you communicate the every other Saturday you would drive down? Was that just through?
So
Was that
a
sorry?
lot of it was
Was that
calls. Yeah.
yeah? Oh, was that like something you spoke about beforehand or during the actual after you've acquired the property?
I think after we acquired, we actually moved up to the cottage for almost a month.
Mm,
And then it was a lot of there was a lot of communication problems between the two couples, but we resolved it by making a list. I'm a list person. So it's kind of like, okay, which one is priority? Which one gets tackled first? How do we get this property out? Everyone had their own responsibilities. Like for example, I took care of the photos, they took care of this, like, so we worked as a team, and then we basically waited for the summer to pass to give us the heads up, like, how well are we doing? Do we proceed from here? What is the numbers that have to be met in order for us to keep it? So those were stuff that we satisfied over the years, and we realized, okay, we can now proceed to the next renovation project, to the next
oh, that's
task,
good.
and then we divided it up. So I think meeting with your JV partner is key thing is communicating and writing it down, making meeting notes, so that it's not like, oh, I thought you said this and you didn't say that, or you didn't mention that. Like we all forget the conversations.
Yeah. Well, especially because we all worry about, especially with real estate purchases, the low hanging fruit, which is let's get this property ready so we can get some tenants. But once things are operating and you have bookings for your specific property, other things come up. And at that point, like, hey, we already actually communicated this. This is our plan of attack for that. So I love that. I love that you did that. That's something we always try to recommend for joint venture partners is write a line down on your paper and just say, on this side, I do this. This is the capital I bring in. This is what I'll bring into the investment. On this side, let's talk about what you would bring, and then draw another side to the paper and talk about compensation or exit strategies, things like that.
Exactly. And I think it's nice to have that discussion with your JV partners every now and then. And we always address, like, do we still want to proceed? How do you feel about this project? Everyone can give their reason and their honest answers. There's really no wrong or right answer in here, because everyone can have, like, it's perspective. You can
Yeah.
go through the same journey, but you can feel different compared to the other person, and that's normal.
Yeah, that is. Yeah, it's what you're trying to, and motivation's important too, right? What you're trying to get out of the investment long term could be different than what I'm trying to get out of the investment long term. And you have to understand motivation for everybody going into the investment. Like, what is it? What is your end goal with this specific property, and why is it that you invest in real estate? And then from there, you can kind of build plans. And if the partnership doesn't work, then that's fine. You at least had an exercise in trying. Yeah, you had an exercise and try to build a partnership. You at least have somebody that you could go back to and kind of bounce ideas from, all of that. So I know we're going to be talking about insurance because you are an insurance broker and you do work with investors a little bit later in this conversation. But I did want to ask you about insurance for short-term rental properties. Is the type of plan that you get for insurances for short-term rental different than the traditional rental that you would purchase?
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. So I think a lot of people don't realize this is not your principal home.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one. And second, short-term rental meaning that you can have a lot of tenants coming in and out. Things can happen, things can break. So people think that they can get the same sort of coverages and limits from, especially in Toronto, somewhere out in Halliburton. That expectation will never be met. Coverages are not that great, but it does cover the main stuff. For example, if the cottage caught on fire, obviously you want that coverage. Again, when you're closing on a mortgage, before you get the set of keys, they want you to have insurance on it, and there's specific requirements. They're not the same like Toronto. We do find that it's challenging, especially when we're trying to disclose the truth. It's going to be an Airbnb rental. a lot of the insurance carriers back out. They would be
Mm.
like, "Nope, we don't even wanna touch this." So you could have, like, let's say in my brokerage, we have over 20 companies. You're narrowed down to maybe only 3 or 4, and in that 3 or 4, each of them has separate criteria. They're like, "Well, we only wanna insure the small properties, not the big ones, not the mansion-looking ones," or the rental income is too high. There's a lot, and then there's different, components in there. For example, how old is your home? Have you done any upgrades inside? So the one that we purchased was 30 years old. It did not apply for a regular quote. We had it to go to high risk market because we were going to go into the property, then upgrade. So at this
Yeah.
moment, we're considered a high risk case.
Oh, because you can't even get is it because of the revenue or is it just because of the state of the house?
The state of the house, like as you probably know, roofing, for example, should be upgraded every 20, 25 years. Plumbing should be, well, plumbing's fine because it's only 30 years old. Electrical is at least minimum 100 amps,
Mm.
breakers ideally. And then for the water heater has to be under 15 years old. Ours was 30.
Ah.
Uh, and then it's like we have a septic tank, which is where all the wastewater and junk goes in, fills it up. You got to remove it. So it's kind of like there's no, sewage for it to come
Yeah.
out from.
Yeah.
You don't have to worry about sewer backup either. But it was just all these components that make it raises the price for the insurance. So it's expectation. A lot of people come out thinking they could save money on the insurance, but the truth is no, actually, you're going to get less coverage, but premiums higher because of your situation. And each insurance carrier, for example, they might just want to insure that you rent out half the year, maximum 180 days. And there might be only one or two carriers that's willing to insure you for the full year that you're going to be able to rent it out for 365 days. So you have to read the definition and see which one you're more comfortable with.
Yeah.
For me as an insurance broker, I just like, you know what? Let's just get the one that lets us rent out all year. I don't want
Yeah.
restrictions. And
And
then
why is
consider
it that
everything.
for some policies they only want you to rent it out for half the year?
Because they consider it as a secondary home for you. It's a cottage for you that you're going to spend half the year there yourself.
Mm. Oh, okay.
Yeah. And as you probably know, vacancy properties are a listed exclusion for most property insurance. So you just have to ask them, how often do I have to be there? It's usually once a month. Some policies are like, nope, once every 2 weeks.
Ah, and you
Yeah,
have to
so
like stay there. You can't just go and just clean the house and leave. You have to stay
no,
there.
you have to stay there. You have to stay there at least one night.
And then, so for someone looking to purchase short-term rental opportunities, at what point before they actually close on the property do you recommend going and speaking with an insurance broker? Because it seems like it takes time to actually really build this plan, this insurance plan.
As soon as you purchase the property, I would say reach out to an insurance broker or an agent right away. Also, be honest what your intentions are for this property. Um, it's also giving us a head start when we're reaching out to insurance carriers. It's not like, hey, here's the property, let's all insure it. They don't jump in like that. We
Yeah.
have to actually, engage a conversation with them and ask for underwriting approval. We'll give them everything we know about this property. So the key thing is for investors to know that you should know about your property as much as you can. If you don't know the answers, go back to the realtor. So it's a lot of back and forth. A lot of time the seller doesn't even have an answer.
Yeah. Oh, it happens even in the everyday, duplex investment. It,
Then
um,
that's when we recommend, can you get an inspection done, right? So get
mhm.
this all done ahead of time, because if you don't, then we're just gonna have to put you with someone we consider the highest risk. And it's not gonna be cheap. And then the client's gonna come back and say, well, I didn't expect this in my budget. Well, I'm
Yeah.
sorry. I didn't expect you not to have a home inspection and have answers like I don't know either. It's difficult. Like we're the middleman between the insurance carriers and the client. So our job is also to be fair on both sides and meet their expectations. And insurance companies need information. And if you
Hmm.
can't satisfy that information, just expect to pay a little bit more because you don't know.
Yeah. 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 Try to exhaust all of the possibilities of getting the info before you go through that route, right?
Yes.
So in regards to, after your short-term rental opportunity, because we have helped you with a few new build opportunities as well. What did you find? Why did you purchase new build opportunities?
So after my experience with the short-term rental, especially during that summer, actually, I think I purchased the pre-con before the summer even started, but I realized what kind of investor I am. I'm a passive investor in the sense I would just like to park my money there. I don't want to go into bidding wars. I spent 6 weeks looking for this cottage, and we went through like almost 100 viewings, and
Yeah,
it took a lot of time. It's honestly it take a lot of time and sitting there having to crunch in all those numbers to see if it makes sense, how much we should bid, and feel disappointed at the end of the day because we didn't get it. Um, it's like yes, people say judge, don't use your emotions. You should treat it like a business, but it's quite hard as well when you've invested all that time, right?
yeah.
So at the end of the day, I realized, you know what, maybe pre-construction condos are the best to go for me because I just want like hands off. No property management is concierge basically and realtors. And I'm
Yeah.
just like, I was like, yeah, I kind of like that.
I own a condo in London that I go once or twice a year, and I wish I saw you on Thursday because I was talking to a few REC insiders about this. I actually had to go through some, landlord intelligence myself with my condo a few weeks ago, and I think one of the best, one of the advantages of condos is a lot of the time it is very hands off. But I had the tenant call me at 7 a.m. on a Sunday a few Sundays ago. And I don't know if you've ever gotten a call from a tenant on Sunday at 7 a.m., but usually it's not a good thing that they're calling you at 7 a.m. on a Sunday. So they called me and she was like, Tyler, the ceiling of the condo is bubbling right now. I was just like, oh,
Mhm.
okay. Can you just hang up and just video call me for a quick second? And then I just saw like a pool of water, obviously caused from the upstairs owner. But the first thing I said is, do not go into that bathroom, close that door, and just hold on for 1 second. I called a few plumbers that I knew that we had in our concierge list in London, and I found one that was able to pick up my call at 7:30 on a Sunday, and actually go in and help fix it. But usually, for I've owned this now for a few years, it's been none of that type of management. And even with that, I didn't even have to go. It was just coordinating the service provider to come in into the into the unit with the tenants. And now we are getting it fixed. We have a contractor in that's going to drywall and paint everything, but um, usually it is very hands off. And I think that even if the property that you own is in Alberta, other than having someone boots to the ground and checking in every quarter or at least twice a year, there's not really too much management that you can't do sitting at home. So it
Exactly.
is it is good. And I think what you've done, just by knowing your portfolio a bit, is you are starting to create a self-enclosed system, potentially getting some cash flow once you do some more renovations to or add some more upkeep to the Halliburton property, maybe even doing a few more with the pre-construction as well, because there's some negative cash flow and some expenses there, but at least it can offset with the short-term rental, and then it's a more self-enclosed system, which me as an investor, that's kind of my strategy, is try to keep things self-enclosed and having the cash flow here help with some negative cash flow here, the passive appreciation help with some potential stagnant growth there. So that's good. I love it. And obviously I'm a fan of pre-construction condos. I've seen so many investors invest and really win with that, but you do have to do more than one type of opportunity. You got to
Yeah,
diversify.
well, because we don't know where is hot, how it's gonna profit or anything. So we just thought, like, since we're gonna create this business, the cottage can support the condo and vice versa, depending
Yeah.
on the market as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and then I always like to say it's you have to look at it in a long term kind of plan, not just those small little growths in a year or declines in a year. You have to look at the market as a long term idea.
Yeah.
So, in regards to what's next in your portfolio, and Catherine, I do appreciate your time here today. What is next in regards to types of opportunities or location that you and your team are thinking about doing?
Right now, we're kind of halting all plans until further notice because of the
Yeah.
current market. Interest rates are on the rise.
Hmm.
We're renewing our mortgage, for example, for the cottage already. So it is, you can tell that the cash flow might not be positive anymore, which
Yeah.
we anticipate, but we can see that rent has increased since the previous year. So we expect the same. So it's going to offset here and there. But we did notice that a lot of pre-constructions had a very good deal where like you only put 10,000 down, like you barely
Yeah.
even put 10% down. But
Yeah.
no, we're very happy with our three purchases that we made with REC. We did scatter it around the entire Ontario,
Yeah. You
Hamilton,
did.
Whitby, and yeah, and Etobicoke.
Yep.
So I guess our strategy is that when we're interested and we see a good deal, or if we have financing still, it's available, then we actually look into purchasing somewhere away from the cities we've already purchased because we
Mm.
have no idea. It's just like we're
Yeah.
just collecting as we go.
I find with pre-construction, I think it's a misconception. Some investors that I've spoken with, they believe that the prices will start going down with pre-construction, but the reality is, with it being more expensive with you to get money through refi or through the HELOC, with interest rates rising, their construction financing costs have gone up as well, and the prices won't be adjusted downwards. But what we are noticing is the ability to actually really negotiate incentives. Ones like really extended deposit structures, cashback incentives, rental guarantees. These types of incentives, we have more flexibility more power in our negotiation, and really, we're now really able to ask the developer to throw in some incentives that we might not in a market where a developer can launch an opportunity and sell out in the weekend. You don't have much flexibility there. You can ask and you get laughed out of the room most of the 9 out of 10 times. So here, developers are more open to listen to what we're trying
Negotiations.
to. Yeah, they're trying to listen to what we're trying to bring them in regards to structuring the deal and throwing in some better incentives. And
Yeah.
on the resale market, one thing that a lot of our REC insiders are doing, they're taking advantage of the lack of buyers' confidence right now, or their presence. Um, and I do think I'll preface that with saying that you have to do 3 times the due diligence in today's market that you were doing historically in the last decade. So you have to really triple check your numbers. But take a look at some of these, secondary or tertiary markets. Ones like Niagara, St. Catharines. Hamilton has a ton of development. It has one of the most, like in the downtown core, is the most or one of the most pending or approved permits for high-rise development. There's so much development happening there, and you could take advantage of a duplex, for example. There, the rental market's grown over 23% year over year in rental growth, and the prices have dropped a bit. They had a run up in 2020 and 2021. All those markets in Niagara, St. Catharines, Hamilton, and prices are starting to adjust a little bit downwards. And you're going to get some cash flow today, so that could be a potential as well. But yeah, you're right. You got to triple check, hold off for a bit. And if an opportunity comes, look at it, but definitely do your research.
Well, like
So
I saw the good deals, but then the new prices, for example, we purchased a two-bedroom with you guys
yeah,
in Hamilton. We bought it under 600,000, right? But now look at the new prices for the new builds. Two
800,
bedrooms are over seven. Yeah, over
800
700,000.
plus.
I'm like, I still think I got a good deal.
You got in actually one of the first projects in Hamilton, high rise, and kind of the new wave of development. And that's a strategy with pre-construction. I think there's 2 schools of thought, like where investors could win with pre-construction, and one is the one that you did for that specific opportunity, which is get into an area that has a lot of upcoming growth. Transit infrastructure is improving, employment infrastructure is improving, and getting in early to this wave of high-rise development. You grow with the incremental prices increases from the developer itself, but also every other building around it. 2-bedroom condos are selling in the 750s to the 8s, whereas you got in a sub 6s, right? And you grow that way. Or the second school of thought is get into the very last building in an area that's already established. The foundational, like passive appreciation, it seems to be that those condos do grow. They have a little bit more of that uptake in passive appreciation, but also it's the newest condo in an area that doesn't have any more growth. So long-term buy and hold. Typically, that saleability of the condo is a little bit higher. Yeah, that's went off in a tangent, but yeah, I love talking about pre-construction. So I'm a numbers guy like yourself. Every morning I try to just run performas. So there's a lot of potential opportunities there. So Catherine, in regards to the insurance side of things, because this conversation's gone so quickly, it's already 45 minutes in, but the insurance side of the industry, and what firm do you work with, first and
I work
foremost?
for Brokers Trust. Yeah, Brokers Trust Insurance Group, located in Vaughan. We have a lot of offices that we purchase over the years, where like Mississauga, Ottawa, London, and so.
Mm-hmm. And it's an independent insurance brokerage then? Like you're able to go and out.
Well, like our insurance, it's kind of like they're like a hub for us. We buy through them, and they
Okay.
represent on us and making sure everything's compliant. So it's kind of like an umbrella of brokers working under Brokers Trust.
Oh,
They
okay.
provide the training, they provide the connections to all the insurance carriers, the quoting system. It's quite interesting because we need that kind of support as a salesperson.
Oh, for sure. You do. And I think just having options when the investor comes in, you can actually give them some options would be good. Always try to put things in front of the investor and say, okay, you can go this route, this route, this route. What works best for you? And sometimes just going to a single, like, let's just say lender, for example, just because that's what I speak about more, but going to, TD, for example, or the Green Bank or the Red Bank, no names, but, you only have one option there. Whereas if you work with an independent mortgage broker, they can shop around just like, yourself with different potential options. What are some common practices you recommend investors doing when they are securing insurances?
I normally recommend for all investors, please be honest to your insurance broker and agent. What I mean by that, provide them your intentions with this property or anything about your business. Involve them in your process. For example, typically everyone who calls me, yeah, I just need home insurance. Can you just get it for me? It's primary dwelling or secondary dwelling. Just hopefully they're like basically they don't want to disclose that they're planning to have two mortgages on it, or that they don't want to tell us that they're going to do a BRRRR project on it. They're planning to duplex it, triplex it, whatever it is. The whole point is to have that conversation before the insurance company finds out the truth and then comes back at us and say, well, why didn't you tell us about these projects that's happening? We see it or we know about it. And then they decide to decline the insurance because it's no longer in their appetite. And the client gets upset because they weren't informed. They're like, well, I didn't know. I mean, I did know about my plans, but I just didn't tell you. I didn't think it was necessary. So, and mind you, a good broker would ask you these questions ahead of time just so that they understand your plans.
Yeah.
But let's say they didn't ask you those questions. It is still your duty to kind of understand how your insurance would cover you. Understand that price is not how am I say this? Price doesn't mean everything. You pay for what you get.
Yeah, you covered.
And exactly. And during the time, let's just say this, okay? Hypothetically, the mortgage company, before they give you the keys to the house, or the seller gives you the keys to the house, you've got your mortgage inside. The lawyer's like, you need to have insurance. Why is that? Because the bank wants to make sure that they're insured first.
Mm-hmm.
So, in regards of you, wouldn't you want to make sure that your insurance is still intact so that the bank doesn't come knocking on your door? I get that most people are like, well, it doesn't happen. It just happens a few cases, but it's not going to happen to me. It happens more than you know.
Yeah.
So then all I could say is that have that conversation. At the end of the day, if something happens, your policy doesn't pay out, it's on you. And by the time you want to sue the broker, well, we know how long that's going to take. You're going to have to prove that you provided them all that information and that the insurance broker was negligent with that information, right? Unless you can prove that. If not, then you're on hook for everything.
Yeah. And is there like a coverage amount that you usually recommend? Like, for example, like kind of fire coverage or water damage coverage that you'd recommend?
Oh yeah, I usually when I quote the client, depending where the property is located, sometimes there's restrictions in that city. If it's on flooding plains, for example, it's very hard to get water coverage. It depends where it is, but usually I would lay it out and provide recommendation on coverages and prices and limits and tell them what's available, and then they can choose from there. Another tip that I do give investors, please make sure all your renters have their own policies.
Hmm.
I run into this so many times. I don't even understand. Before you got the keys to the property, you had to make sure you had insurance. Why is your renters not having their own insurance?
Yeah.
And usually they just have to buy tenant insurance. A lot of people don't even know what that is. It's to protect the renter's contents and liability, and also giving them an allowance for the time period that, let's say, your property was caught on fire, you needed to repair for 6 to 12 months. They have to move out of here, and initially they're probably going to have to rent a hotel or Airbnb for short term. Who's going to pay for it,
Yeah.
right?
It's
And
it's the landlord if they don't
if,
have proper coverage.
exactly, as you already know the rules there, the landlord is in charge of the tenant's well-being during these events. So all you had to do was to remove that headache by simply making sure before you give them the keys, they had their tenant insurance, and provide an update every year, giving providing proof that they have insurance in place, and that's it.
Yeah.
So when something happens, you know that they can move out. They have their own insurance. They have their own coverage.
Is there, because I know you spoke on a few things, like for example, not providing the full picture of the of the actual purchase that you've made, or the strategy of what you're doing with it. Are there other things that you notice investors doing wrong when it comes to actually building that insurance plan?
Um, I think the emphasis is home inspections, understanding the property you've invested in. There is an onus to the owner of the property to maintain and to take care of it. There's bylaws in place. Realtors know about this too. Like every staircase needs a handrail, for example.
Yeah.
Heating has to be at least 21 degrees, whether it's hot or cold. So it's kind of like those things that a lot of homeowners or property owners jump in without realizing what is your responsibilities. And by answering I don't know is not good enough. So a home inspection is something that I totally recommend every time when my clients come in, they buy a property with no conditions. I'm like, you need to know. You need to know all this. And a home inspection for a few $100s would provide you all that details. Like you
Yes.
said, you're not a professional contractor. You don't know what this is a leak. What is this thing that's hanging on the roof? you
Yeah.
know, it could be water damage, could be anything. So
A-
get a professional in.
And water damage, I found, just with working with investors throughout the years, there's a lot of hidden water damage as well. Ones that maybe not even the seller's trying to hide. It's just it is hidden. Like for example, in the basement with a lot of clutter or a lot of things there, and home inspectors are able to actually, for the most part, see the water damage through different types of tools that they use. Right. So you can't really hide it when you're using different types of tools. And I highly recommend, especially in today's market, in all markets, but in today's market, you can actually tie up properties on a home inspection condition. So it's not like you have to spend $500 to go and get a home inspection done and then compete with 30 other buyers that are going firm, right? But in today's market, you actually tie it up and then do the home inspection afterwards. So use this time right now for everyone listening as a potential buyer. You do have a lot more power in your negotiation. So use those conditions, use those clauses. So
I
Catherine,
try to explain it in a sense like, for example, home inspection helps stamp today that you did your due diligence. It could be used in court to say, look, I got a professional out. This is what was provided to me, all the major and minor fixes that I have to do, and I did them. And
yeah,
when you own up to it, you're like, I'm a responsible landlord. I did everything I can in my, the measures I have. It's weight in the court, it's weight with a claim. And then at least the insurance company is not going to say, well, you didn't do any of these stuff, you were not responsible. The only way for our insurance company to back out a claim is to prove that you were negligent, right? And yeah, so by going to court saying I didn't know is not a good enough answer.
Mm.
And that's something I emphasize with my clients a lot. When we work for them, we try to aim to provide them all the professional tips just so that they can be a responsible landlord.
And also, you actually said something really good there as well, Catherine, which is you're trying to also, if there is ever a time to build a case, you want to stack as much cards in your favor as possible, and having a home inspection done and saving the home inspection. That's a big one as well. Saving the file. I have a folder for my property in London that's literally just there for everything that I've done. Anytime the tenants reached out to me, the damage, for example, I have everything saved into that folder, just in case I would ever need that. So I love that you just said that. It's something that
And you should
not
also
a lot.
upgrade it, like
Yeah,
update the inspection every 5 to 10 years if you must. Just spend the money just so that you know.
that's a good point too. I love that. You just I like that you said the ability, just having all the cards in your favor, or try your best anyways, and just show that you are doing your due diligence, and you are trying to provide a realistic idea of your property. So that's good. And then Catherine, because we are almost at the hour time, and I appreciate this conversation has flown by really quickly, so I really appreciate that. You've given a lot of knowledge today, and I loved hearing your experience, with short-term rentals. And it's an investment I speak with, an asset class I do speak with a lot of our REC insiders and investors a lot about. So you've given some insight, and I really do value that. I put your email address into our private chat. Is that the correct one? What is the best way to connect with you?
Give me a second. Yes, that's the email.
That's right. So Nick, if you don't mind just putting that into the chat. And what I can do, Catherine, is, if you're already in our service provider list, but for anyone who does want to speak with Catherine, connect with her, see how she might be able to help you build that insurance plan. She's fantastic, and this is something that we can coordinate, or just reach out to Catherine. I know we put that email into the chat. We can definitely connect you, though. If you don't, you can send me an email to info@REC Canada. And Catherine, what's next for you in regards to? Oh, there we go. It's right there. What's next in regards to the long weekend? What do you have planned?
Taking my kids to the city celebration in Mississauga because
Oh,
there's
perfect.
dinosaur show there.
Oh, amazing. That's fun. I don't know what we're gonna do. Oh, we're actually heading out to Hamilton right now. We're gonna go see some friends in Hamilton. And
Nice.
then we do a lot of stuff at the library. So I got two little ones myself, and I'm trying to take advantage of all of those experiences. I loved that when I was a kid, so I'm trying to go out as well. You gotta enjoy the weather. It's beautiful today.
I know. Like, and my kids are like, "Can you stop working?" I'm like, "Okay, I'm gonna try."
It's hard. It's, being a service provider and working with purchasers or investors. Usually you have to work on their time. So I
I
fully understand.
know. I've got calls at midnight saying, "I need insurance tomorrow. We're closing tomorrow." I'm like, "What? Like, didn't you purchase this 3 months ago and you're calling me now?" And I'm like, "Oh my God. All right, I'll try to work on it." And a lot of times there's just, like I don't like last minute deals. So exactly build that relationship with your insurance broker so that they understand and they kind of build the expectation for the next property. And I educate them, and I'm like, I would call out on them. I'm like, "Guys, it's the weekend. Are you serious? It's like long weekend. There's nothing I can do until Monday or Tuesday."
Like, why are you even closing today? That actually brought up a question while you were speaking about that. One of I find the challenges that I've seen investors have when it comes to arranging insurances, an insurance plan, is when they enter in the occupancy stage for pre-construction, because technically they don't actually own the condo yet. Have you helped investors secure insurance during those times, or like have you seen that being done?
Yes. So what we do is rental, uh, we get the rental condo
Hmm.
or the tenant package, depending on whether they're moving in or they're renting it out. So we have to reach out to the specific providers and give them heads up, and then they'll let us know which type of coverage they would prefer to sell
Okay.
to this client. So it has been done, and it's just more like just be honest that, when you get this insurance, are you going to have a tenant coming in the next month
Yeah.
or 2 months? And at the same time, there's no right or wrong answer. Just let us know and give us heads up. So usually I start with a tenant package, and then I move it over to a rental condo as soon as we find a tenant and a lease, and making sure they have insurance before they move in as well.
Oh, so the strategy is that, or the timing anyways for the strategy is before occupancy. Do you recommend like a month before occupancy?
No, so when they'll give you head notice that, let's say we're closing in May, right? So they're
Yeah.
gonna acquire the keys. The landlord, for example, the investor would be like, I'm moving in. Because we
Okay.
told them vacancy is not an option for insurance, especially depending where. So they would be like, okay, I'm gonna move in. So we're gonna get the tenant package. But I also
Mhm.
give them the expectation, as soon as you get the lease in and the tenant a renter coming in, then we're gonna need these requirements: their insurance,
Yeah.
their lease agreement, and then the details about them, so that we can submit it to the insurance company and switch it into a rental condo. Those can
So
be done.
I'm going to talk to you next week because we actually need to add a service provider for that. Just because we do have some upcoming closings with our REC insiders. It's just always good to have the full all-star team in place. And I find maybe short-term rentals might be harder for you, but I always find connecting insurance representatives. One of the most challenging ones is working with someone who understands the process of pre-construction, because you're not just getting your traditional landlord coverage. You're actually, you don't technically own the condo yet. So I appreciate that. I was just thinking about it. I always wanted to speak to an insurance agent about that specific strategy for it, because it is challenging. So
I have
thank you.
clients who actually purchase pre-con every 2 years. And I was like, why are you guys doing this? Because the price seems higher than the market price. I never understood it at one point either.
Mm,
And then they're like, no, it catches up actually.
yeah, yeah,
You pay a
yeah.
high price today, but you catch up, and you don't have mortgage, you don't have to deal with tenants, and I don't have to bid, no bidding wars. So I'm like, oh, interesting, nice to know. And I start paying attention. I think because of exposure, it's like you see, monkey do, and I realized I wanted to jump in as well because I'm learning so much from all these people.
Yeah. Oh, and also, in today's market, like, you don't have to worry about getting a mortgage right now. So, the higher interest rates, you're buying something today that won't be ready till 2028 for pre-construction. So that's
Very much.
another incentive as well. Well, Catherine, I appreciate your time. For everyone listening, please either reach out to me, info@REC Canada. You have my cell phone number. The majority of you can send me a text message. I can connect you with Catherine. But Catherine's email is also in our chat. Catherine, thank you so much for spending some time out of your long weekend. Enjoy the time with your kids and George. And you and I will be speaking anyways next week. I'm going to put into my calendar.
Thank you so much for having me, and good luck to you too. I know you have kids. Have fun.
Oh, yeah, I can't wait. Nora this morning, my oldest, she was like, Daddy, when you're done work, we're going to go play. I was like, of course, yes. We will play
You
all.
understand.
Okay, Catherine.
Okay.
Bye now.
Bye, guys.